A warm, well actually not so warm welcome to Prague as we fly with Pegasus over to Dubai. Now you might wonder why I've chosen this routing, but simply put, I was trying to find a really cheap trip to Dubai, and believe it or not, following a go-around when I flew in with British Airways earlier that day, the next bit of excitement was to learn that this flight was just a whopping 56 quid. Very cheap indeed. Now, I love connecting in Prague because you don't have to go anywhere near immigration. If you're going from non-Schengen to non-Schengen, it means you get to float through the airport and just go from one gate to another. But of course, if you've watched my videos before, you'll know that I love a lounge. So here is the MasterCard Lounge at Prague. It's got a decent food selection and it's actually a really nice place to while away the hours before your next flight. There's lots of different seating areas and you have exceptional views of the airfield. Well, normally you have exceptional views, although the weather today kind of got in the way. It's a decent lounge, and if you've got priority pass, then this one is definitely for you. Of course, flying with Pegasus, you won't get lounge access. They are a low-cost carrier, and unashamedly so. I may have had 1 or 2 beers before my flight, and indeed, why not? The selection here isn't too bad at all. There's even this outdoor section, although it was freezing cold today, so nobody was out there. So who is Pegasus? Well, they're a low-cost carrier and they've got about 130 aircraft. They fly from lots of airports in the UK, including Stansted and Birmingham, and they've got a massive network that's based around their hub in Istanbul. Now, talking of their hub in Istanbul, we'll come on to that a little bit later, but it's quite an adventure. You'll see what I mean soon. We got to the gate, and interestingly, we were there ready as our aircraft arrived, so it suggests that they are experts in a very, very quick turnaround. They run a relatively young fleet as well in a single-class configuration. Here's our jet today that took us over to Turkey, an 8-year-old Airbus A321neo. Just another observation. Wherever we moved as passengers, it seemed like we moved in big clumps. I can't really explain it. It was almost like people didn't think they were going to get a seat. Presumably, we all had a booked seat, but there you go. Here's the interior of the aircraft. Now, this was 8 years old, and it looked like it was fairly well used. The seat pitch is fairly limited, but I really lucked out. I was in seat 30F, and it turned out I was in the whole row on my own. Not just my row of 3, but the row of 3 opposite me as well. Happy days. The legroom, I will say, was pretty naff. There were air vents though, so it's not all bad. But there's the whole row all to myself, and I didn't even book this seat. So I thought I did really, really well there, or at least got very, very lucky. Now, despite quite a few people getting on the plane, it looked fairly busy with the exception of my row. And there's a seat mat for your reference. We did actually manage to push back pretty much bang on time, which is fair play given the number of people that were milling about at the gate. The weather was still not very nice indeed, and you can see here as we made our way out to the runway, there was a bit of snow at the sides of the runway. Anyways, here's the takeoff. A lovely smooth takeoff from Prague, and you can see there the visibility was just awful. It's no surprise that we did a go around earlier that day with British Airways. Soon though, we gave way to some beautiful blue skies and the service would begin. Now, it's a low-cost carrier, so of course there's nothing included, But I will say, in Pegasus' defense, they've actually got a really broad selection. Here's just a few examples of some of the bits and pieces you could buy on board. I just went for a beer and a water, and I may have borrowed those crisps from the BA lounge at Heathrow, but just don't tell anyone. You'll also note that those spare seats off to my left were soon liberated by a couple of other passengers, and fair play, by the way. The time whiled away fairly quickly, although I have to say the legroom was pretty naff and I was ready to get off the jet by the end of the flight, and that despite having pretty much a row to myself. One thing to mention, there isn't Wi-Fi as such, but there is options to view digital content via Pegasus. You do, of course, pay for that. Here we are, landing in Istanbul, pretty much on time again. My sound wasn't working too well for the landing for some reason, but there was actually an applause on arrival, which I thought was quite quaint and not something I've heard for a little while. So fair play to those people for that entertainment. Welcome to Istanbul Sabiha Gökçen Airport, the other Istanbul airport. You'll see here that this is absolutely a Pegasus stronghold. It's pretty much the only airline that I could see represented here. There are others, but this is definitely their major hub, and it's a very, very busy hub, as we will soon see. Now, before I start to moan about the experience that's to come, yes, we got a bus gate, but let's remember that this flight has cost me £56, and I'm only halfway through the flight. I'd have been happy to probably pay 56 quid just to get to this leg of the journey. But let's remember, it's going to take me another 4 hours across to Dubai, so I keep thinking about the value as I walk through the rain here in Istanbul. And here is the airport. Subscribers, please, if ever I mention that I'm going to connect through this airport again, and this is the lounge, by the way. I tried to find some solace in one of the two lounges available. It was just mega busy, and if I could choose not to, I would never connect through here again. Anyway, soon it was time to board for our next hop over to Dubai, and this time I did actually book an exit row. It was a 4-hour hop, and I wanted to try and get a little bit of rest as this was an overnight flight effectively. And the legroom was actually pretty good indeed, and I got a few hours of rest. The flight was pretty unexceptional, so much so that I kind of awoke as we were on our final approach. And you'll see here, we flew on a 1-year-old jet down to Dubai. So if you're tall, I would strongly recommend that you get an extra legroom seat if you're flying with Pegasus. That's not a dig at them. Most of the low-cost carriers have very limited legroom, but for longer flights in particular, as this one was, 4 hours, it's absolutely necessary if you are tall, because the legroom just isn't sustainable, particularly if you've got people sat next to you. Anyway, let's review Pegasus. I'd never flown with them before, and I have to say I was pretty impressed. From their app, to the service on board, to the selection, and to the fact that you got exactly what it said on the tin. I think this is a pretty good airline, and it's not a surprise to me that they've grown massively across Europe. We actually arrived in Dubai just a little bit late, but nothing that I was concerned about. This was a very, very decent flight. And yes, of course, there are better ways to fly, and it's taken me about twice as long had I just flown directly from Prague to Dubai, of course. But if you want to spend your money when you arrive in resort, maybe someone like Pegasus is a good idea, because 56 quid, I'd struggle to get a train from where I live to London for that amount of money, and I've flown from here to Dubai. Here we are, arriving at the international terminal in Dubai as we finish this little adventure from Prague down to Dubai. I'd fly with Pegasus again. I'd be interested to know who of you has flown with Pegasus and what your thoughts are as they continue to grow their routes across Europe. Well, that's it for this instalment. Thank you so much for watching. I'm really grateful that you've given me your time today. And a special thank you to my subscribers. I'm so grateful for you following my adventures. I look forward to seeing all of you on the next one.